Hey guys, this is Heather from healthyveganrecipes.net. Today I'm going to do a recipe that uses sauerkraut because Phil is our resident sauerkraut maker and we have quite a bit of sauerkraut left, and tomorrow we are heading to his parents' place and we're going to be staying there for about 3 weeks while Phil works on some gardening videos. But we don't really want to take the sauerkraut with us, so I'm going to try to use it up. And if you're looking just for the recipe, you can shoot ahead to healthyveganrecipes.net. I'll post the full recipe there. What I'm going to base this on is some beets and some potatoes. So most people, when they eat sauerkraut, are eating it with sausages, but don't worry, you can have it with beets and potatoes and a nice onion. That always helps. Don't eat any sausages. We can have our sauerkraut in a vegan way. So the first thing I did was scrub these potatoes, and they're looking a little bit old. I think they're probably the end of the potato batch from last year. And I just wanted to show you, so you get these scars in the potatoes. Normally I say not to peel, so I've scrubbed the dirt off of these, but there's still some scarred bits in the potato, and yeah, so you can see you really don't want to be eating that. So just go ahead and cut that out. Some knives are better than others for this job. This one is a little bit big, but I'm very stubborn when it comes to doing dishes, so I try to use as few knives as possible. So cut out all of the bad bits of your potato, and then you're going to want to chop this up. Now the smaller you chop your potato, the less time it's going to take to cook. And I like to have nice little bite-sized pieces, but go with whatever size you like. Then with the beet, you're going to cut off the ends, peel it, cut it about the same size as the potato. And same thing with the onion. Just chop the ends off, take the peel off, chop it up whatever size you like. So when you get everything cut up, just toss it in the pot here, and there's a couple ways you can do this. You can bring the water up to the level of the vegetables and boil them, or you can do like I did today and just put a little bit of water in the bottom so that they actually more steam than boil. And the reason for this is that the nutrients don't dissolve into the water. And then I'm going to use the water as kind of a sauce base for this dish. Now what I'm going to add is a little bit of salt, and I've got my salt mixed with some kelp powder here so it looks green, and I thought that was kind of cool looking. So there you go. So I'm just going to sprinkle a bit on here, and this is mainly to help the vegetables cook and give it a nice rich flavor that's going to go well with our sauerkraut. So stir the salts all around the vegetables and turn that on to about medium. Put the lid on, that's going to help it steam. So while that cooks, which should take about 30 minutes, I'll tell you a little bit about the star of today's show, our sauerkraut. A lot of you out there are probably thinking, sauerkraut? Really? I don't want to eat that. Okay, I understand. I hated sauerkraut all of my life. Phil actually has made sauerkraut a few times many years ago, and I didn't eat it because I didn't want to, because I didn't like it. But I have since learned about the nutritional benefits of sauerkraut, and so I've forced myself to eat it a few times and realized that, hey, it's not that bad. And actually, if you pair it with the right dish, it can be good. Phil and I went to visit his sister Haley in Amsterdam in the winter, this past winter, and we got really into the sauerkraut. We were putting it on all of our meals while we were there, even when it didn't really go. We were a little bit obsessed with the sauerkraut. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up today is because fermented foods like sauerkraut add a really important nutritional influence to your diet. So for vegans, We don't often get a lot of fermented foods because the most common is yogurt, and we don't eat yogurt. So adding something like sauerkraut or making your own fermentations with other things is really a good way to get some microorganisms and some different nutrients into you. Now, cabbage is something that a lot of people don't eat on its own, so making it into sauerkraut as kind of a condiment is a way to get some cabbage into your diet. And it smells pretty good. Although I have to say, it is an acquired taste. So take it slow, find some dishes like this that you can pair it with that'll be really delicious, and just give it a try. I should also mention that making your own sauerkraut is actually pretty easy, and that you know it's fresh and no preservatives and all that good stuff. So if enough of you leave comments, we might persuade Phil to do a video on how to make sauerkraut, because he is our household sauerkraut maker. It's very, very easy though. I've watched him do it, and I feel confident that I could do it myself. I just like to leave some jobs for him to do in the kitchen. Makes him feel useful. He gets his recipe from a book called Wild Fermentation, and I have a link somewhere on my website in my book recommendations, but if you just do a search on Amazon, I'm sure it will come up. So the fun thing about beets is that they turn everything red, or in this case, orange. Alright, so when things get soft in here, and you judge that by poking it with a fork, which I know sounds a little obvious, but that's why there's a saying about it. Alright, someone recently asked me, what's a good way to mince up garlic really quickly? My answer, garlic press. This is how fast it is, watch. Yep, that's it. And then just scrape it off there. And if you really like it, you can take it out of the inside. I like garlic, so I'm gonna put another cup of cloves in there. So seasoning this is just as important as using the right ingredients to go with the sauerkraut. Garlic, always good. Onions, always good. I'm gonna throw a little bit of apple cider vinegar in here, back here. It's good stuff. It goes nicely with the sauerkraut, as does a little bit of nutritional yeast, which in Canada is this yellow flaky stuff, okay? Same in the States, but in Europe it can be a little bit more difficult to find, and it might be called something else. In France it was called brewer's yeast. Was it? No. The name was in French, so I don't know exactly what it translated to, but I've got a little bit of paprika here. Going for a little bit of a Hungarian feel, and some oregano. This is bringing back memories. This is some oregano that Phil grew in our garden in BC, and then I dried it and moved it across the country with me. So throw some of that in there, along with some apple cider vinegar. Give it a stir, and then it just needs a few minutes for the flavors to come together. This is really cool that it's orange. It's making me happy for some reason, the orange color. Alright, as you know, I tend to spill things. I've got a little onion over here, got a little spray going on over there. But it's all good. Making a mess is part of the fun of cooking. You may have noticed that I was wearing a red shirt today. It was not an accident. Beets tend to fly in the kitchen. Alright. I'll probably turn the heat off and then just put the lid back on to heat it up just that little bit at the end. So when I walked in the kitchen tonight, I was actually planning to make this with just beets, onion, and zucchini. But little did I know, there was only one beet left. So I had to change things a little bit and add the potatoes. But for me, I find potatoes are fairly heavy. I do think of them as a grain, not a vegetable. You should do the same. But for some reason, they just really sit for me. So what I did to lighten this up was I've got it on a bed of lettuce, some fresh romaine. I'm also going to throw some sprouts on top here. These are another of Phil's contribution to the household food. He grows these sprouts on our windowsill. Just our little sprouter there. And last but not least, our star, the sauerkraut. Just going to take a nice big forkful here. Get that on top. And I wind up with a mini mountain of food. But I've gotten smarter, and for myself I use the small portion plate, and for Phil, who eats a lot more than I do, I use the big portion plate. I'll also probably throw a few sunflower seeds on his, just to get a little bit more calories, a little bit more fat for him. And there we go. A lovely beet, potato, orange mixture. Orange in color. I didn't put oranges in there. I didn't sneak them in when you weren't looking, don't worry. Topped with sprouts and sauerkraut. Looking lovely. You can find the recipe over at healthyveganrecipes.net. I hope you enjoy.